Hello everyone, my name is Josh and welcome to WHIMS, and today I'm going to be doing my review for the 1990 film Home Alone. Now this film is actually kind of very special to me because it's not the first time this year that I've seen this film, because this year I turned 30 in November. It was on November the 18th. And for my birthday treat, I basically watched a bunch of films. And one of the films that I wanted to watch was Home Alone to get me in preparation for Christmas, because that was something that I always used to do in my family, or we always used to do. We always used to watch films around late November. We always used to watch Christmas films, or start watching Christmas films. And then we very slowly, continue it throughout the month of December. Slowly into December and beyond. But Home Alone was one of the films that I picked, and this isn't the first time that I've actually seen it this year. I saw it on my birthday, at home with my family, and then I saw it again with my friend Bradley at the Omniplex in Sutton, and I saw it with his brother Aaron. So it was a very nice day out. It was a very nice evening, and then we went to dinner afterwards, and it was a really lovely time. And it was a very special occasion because it was also Christmas time as well, and it was the first time I was watching Home Alone on the big screen. So Home Alone, for those of you who don't know, is a Christmas film starring Macaulay Culkin, Catherine O'Hara, John Hurd, Daniel Stan and Joe Pesci. And this particular film is about a boy named Kevin Macalister who lives in quite a big household with a very big family. And he's kind of, well, I wouldn't call him the runt of the litter because he isn't the youngest, but he's the guy, or he's the kid who gets often the most, he gets the most picked on or the most mocked, because he is the character who kind of does things or asks for things that would seem like a no-brainer to any other kid, like, learning how to pack his own suitcase and things like that. But then he also gets openly mocked by siblings. Like, there's this one very kind of dark and very almost traumatizing moment where Buzz says, "I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my arse," and things like that. So he is often, subjected to a lot of mockery and a lot of horrible, comments. But Kevin is one of those kids who quite happily, does stuff also to kind of, stir up the ire of a lot of his family. Like, say, for example, making ornaments out of his father's new fish hooks, and also playing with the glue gun in the garage and doing other such things. And lots of family members are probably thinking to themselves, oh, I don't want Kevin being involved in this because he's probably just going to stir up too much trouble. And it is very bizarre because a lot of kids are like this, where they do kind of find themselves thinking, yeah, they do their little things, they play with their little ornaments, or they make little ornaments out of things that they shouldn't do, or they'll, play with things that they're not meant to be playing with. But that's just the way kids are. But what I like about Kevin is he kind of takes a lot of this in his stride. He often takes a lot of things like it with a pinch of humour as well. Like, there's that moment where Catherine O'Hara says to John Hurd's character, the dad, Peter Macalister, he was in the garage again playing with glue gun, and he's like doing this, like, cut it off, and it's really funny. It's really hilarious because it's like, that's how he deals with it, and you can really tell that with this film, it's really good at writing kids behaving like kids, because you don't really feel like. And what I want to mention about this film is this film was written by John Hughes, who, before he wrote Home Alone, he wrote several films that were actually very huge and very big in the late 80s and early 90s. He wrote films like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he wrote films like The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink, and he was a very good writer of writing about teenagers and children, and he's very good at, writing children characters as if they were children. They're not like, overly cutesy or overly sentimental. They are very much like kids. They are kids who would break stuff if you were to play with things. Like, there's this very funny scene where one of Kevin's siblings and his cousin Fuller are playing with swords, and they don't sound like fake swords. They sound like real swords that you would actually, use if you were to actually use a sword in real life, or actually use a sword for a prop in a film. It's very bizarre and it's very surreal, and it's one of those things where it feels like that's what kids would do. And it's a really great example of what John Hughes is able to do. But what I really like about this family is it does feel like a family. It's a very big family. They're going on vacation to Paris the following morning, so they're going to have this great big dinner where they're going to have this great big, pizza dinner, and everything's going very well. Kevin's very excited. He runs down the stairs yelling, "Pizza, pizza." And then all the while, there is a guy in a cop uniform, played by Joe Pesci, asking about the security of the house. Pay attention to that, because like in my last video for Eyes Wide Shut, that's going to come up again later. But what's very interesting is that Kevin is kind of excited for his pizza. He loves his own special plain cheese pizza. And then Buzz pretty much is seen stuffing a pizza into his mouth. And he starts to, anger him by saying, yeah, we did order you plain pizza, but if somebody did, someone's going to have to bath it all up because it's all gone. And I don't know about you, but if that was me, I'd probably do the same thing that Kevin did there. Like, I'd be like going, right now, you've had it. I wouldn't headbutt him in the chest or anything like that or knock over milk, but I would definitely pay him back later on, and I'll say, just you wait. Like, I'll pay back you for that particular thing. But that's always the thing. That's kind of the thing with the sequel as well, where Buzz always does something that pisses Kevin off, and Kevin gets really angry, and it ends up, turning back on him in some way, or reflecting back on him badly in some way. But there's so many good moments in this. There's a really good moment that always makes me laugh, because it always reminds me of my nephew in some way when he was a little bit younger. Like, whenever my nephew would do anything mischievous or act very mischievously, and I'd ask him, "What are you doing?" he'd always give me this smile that reminds me of Fuller when this line happens. The mum says to Kevin's cousin, "Fuller, go easy on the Pepsi." And it cuts to Fuller drinking this Pepsi, and he has this very mischievous smile, and I thought, that's my nephew right there. like whenever I'm going, "What are you doing?" he'd always give me that smile. And I'd always laugh to myself whenever I see that scene. Like, it's one of those moments where I really do chuckle. And what I really like about seeing this film is I saw this film with my friend Bradley in the cinema, but what's really great about watching this film as well was that I saw it with a bunch of families. There was a lot of families in the audience, and I can remember there was a scene in the film where Kevin is taking a ride down the stairs in sort of like a sled, and there's this little knowing ripple of laughter among the children in the audience, because part of them would think, yeah, this is what I would do if I was home alone, kind of thing. And it was really great. It's nice seeing the reaction to this film from much younger kids, because I'm so used to seeing it with adults and, us looking back on that time period, because this was sort of like our childhoods, like the early 90s. So it was kind of very strange to sort of see it with children and see how children would react to it, and sort of see it almost like as a playful fantasy, like, oh, what if I was home alone? And how it all happens is actually really kind of funny, because Buzz mocks Kevin for taking the pizza, and then he knocks over Buzz, who in turn knocks over some milk that goes over a couple of napkins and a couple of passports, and it includes Kevin's boarding pass, which Peter unceremoniously throws in the garbage. So that's how he probably missed out on his flight. But not only that, but we also get to see, Kevin sleep in, and he even makes a wish when he goes up to bed. He says, "I wish they would all just disappear." And that's when, the family leaves, they've slept in, so they end up having to rush to the airport to get to Paris. And when you're rushing, you tend to not think very clearly, or you tend to think in a very narrow corridor kind of way. You tend to have a very one-track mind, where you're kind of thinking to yourself, where are the passports, the tickets? Oh, I put them in the microwave to dry them off and things like that. But then you also think about, oh, have we packed all the suitcases, line up in front of the van, everyone, count heads and things like that. You're always thinking about all these different things, but you're not thinking about, do we have all the kids? Do we have everyone up and at them? Do we have them all, going to the bathroom? Do we have them all, getting dressed and getting washed and everything like that? We're always thinking about, we have to get there on time quickly. And they just happen to make the plane. But then the mum says, "I hope we didn't forget anything." And very quickly, jump cut to Kevin opening the door, still in his pyjamas, looking like he's in a haze. Looking like me whenever I'm home alone in the house. Like me, just wandering around, just getting my coffee ready and things like that. And it's very bonkers. It's a very bonkers scenario, because you really do feel like this element is kind of where it all plays to the film's strengths, because when the film likes to big up you being Kevin's head, it plays in a scenario where it's like, oh, okay, this is the scenario how it was played. Literally, they say things like, "Look what you did, you little jerk, Uncle Frank," and there are 15 people in this house. You're the only one that has to make trouble. That's what his mum says. And there's even a line in here that didn't actually appear in the real world sequence. It was actually a line where Buzz goes, "Kevin, I'm going to feed you to my tarantula," and that didn't happen. So it was actually very bizarre. And then, of course, one of the siblings goes, "Kevin, you're such a disease," and it's not said in that way, but he does say that line, and it's actually kind of interesting because that's Kevin basically bigging it up and saying that, oh yeah, it's much more worse than it actually was, but in reality it was just him. There's still horrible comments to make, of course, but part of me just feels like that's basically the imagination of a kid kind of going into overdrive, and it's like almost along the same lines as the fantasy sequences in A Christmas Story, where a lot of the fantasy sequences that Ralphie has are very exaggerated, and the parents are being very melodramatic and kind of acting very pantomime-esque when they kind of do these performances, and it is really fun. Or like Shirley Temple's Little Princess, where the evil headmistress is kind of portrayed as a little hag, like the Wicked Witch of the West, and saying things like, "Oh yes, I know who you are," and things like that. Like, it's very over the top. And I like that stuff because it really goes to show that they're naturally making a classic. And it really is funny, and I love the line. I love the moments where he's like making ice cream and he just leaves the entire counter in a mess. That's every OCD person's worst nightmare. But remember that cop I mentioned earlier? It turns out he's a crook named Harry, and he has a partner in crime called Marve, who are planning on stealing every single every single possession from every house on the street of Kevin's address. And it's actually quite sinister. And it's also kind of horrible. Like, one of the first houses that we see getting robbed is completely trashed when we first, see them at their full brutality, I suppose you could say. And to add further insult to injury, Marv clogs up the drains in the sink and he leaves the water running so that the house is flooded when they get back. And it's a really horrible thing to do because not only is this happening at Christmas time, where you've already got enough stresses going on, but you've also got to deal with the fact that your house is flooded, you're potentially homeless as well, and it's a really horrible thing to do. So this is actually a great way of showing off to the audience that, yeah, we want these characters to suffer, and we do kind of almost egg Kevin on when this happens, because the traps in this film are probably one of the most memorable elements of the film, because what's really great about it is they are brutal, but they also feel very brutal, but they also feel like, yeah, this is still fine, this is still funny to watch, because again, this is happening to Marv and Harry. These aren't very nice people, these are awful people. In fact, I totally relished seeing them get theirs. But I always react in the same way to every single trap. Like, whenever I see the nail going through the foot trap, I'm always like going, ah! Whenever I do that, whenever I see that trap, I'm always like going, ah, very quickly. And then, of course, the literal crotch shot always gets a massive laugh out of me, because that sound effect is it's almost very true to life if it wasn't so exaggerated. But it's a really well done sequence, and I really do think the trap sequences are the things that everyone goes into this film for. But what's really at the emotional heart of this film is Catherine O'Hara and her love for her son, because when she finds out that he's gone missing, the first thing she does is she goes to Paris, and the family, even though they were horrible to Kevin, when push comes to shove and they are actually in danger, they really do pull together and they say things like, "Please, our little brother's home alone," and things like that, and they really do kind of do almost very kind of, very desperate things to make sure that he gets back. The only one who kind of stays within character the entire movie is Buzz. Like, he's the only character who feels like he hasn't changed at all from when we first saw him. But at the same time, even he has moments where it's like, it's a good thing he didn't burn the place down, and they have like this little fist bump moment. I really like that, because it's like even though he is a bit of an arsehole, he still is his big brother and things like that. So Catherine O'Hara's performance of her getting to the airport from one place to the other is very heartfelt. Her moment with John Candy in the truck was very heartfelt and very, moving. I love seeing John Candy in films. Like, whenever I see him in films, he always plays these really nice guys. Like these guys who are a little bit bonkers or are a little bit crazy, but you really do feel like I suppose the phrase I would use for a John Candy character is larger than life. He's very good at downplaying certain characters, but he always plays them as humble, where they are very kind of, they are very kind of down to earth and very relatable, but you do also feel like there's something very charming about them that they can, just get you to feel like just this warmth. Like his character in Planes, Trains, Automobiles is another character where you just feel this genuine sense of warmth to his character as well, and you do feel quite sad for him as well. It's kind of the same thing with this character in Home Alone, where you do feel there's almost this warmth to him, and it's a sad thing that this is one of the last films that he ever did, and it really is quite sad to think that, because he is a really good actor and he's a really good comedic actor, but he's also really good. And did you know that the entire monologue that he did about leaving the kid in the funeral parlour was in fact all improvised? That was actually all made up on the spot. That was actually all made up in the script. That was actually all made up in John Candy's monologue and in his performance, because that wasn't in the script. So that was actually rather interesting to me. So I really do like this film, but one of the things that I really do like, and one of the moments where, when you're an adult, when you're a child, you watch these scenes and you're thinking to yourself, oh, he's very sinister. But the neighbour, Marley, is probably one of those characters who, when you're watching as a kid, you kind of look at him as very intimidating, because he's like this intimidating, like, very tall, elderly man, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, he does look rather intimidating. But when you get older, you're actually much more smarter, and you realise that there's a lot of expressions that when you see it again, knowing what he's actually like, you do kind of find yourself going, it's actually really sad looking at a lot of these expressions. Like there's that moment where Buzz is telling the story about, him murdering his family and half the people on the block with a snow shovel and the salt turning into mummies and things like that. And there's that moment where he looks up at the window and they hide. And it just looks back at his reaction, and he just looks very fed up and very sad. And it's actually really quite heartbreaking to watch. And I actually got a little teary-eyed when I watched the scene where he's reunited with his family again at the end. It's one of those moments where it feels like the emotional heart of the film is... There's two emotional hearts to the film. The family of Kevin getting reunited, but it's also the family of the neighbour getting reunited as well. It's that element that makes this film feel like a Christmas movie, even though a lot of people could have that classic debate of whether or not Home Alone is a Christmas movie or whether it isn't. But I do think it does have the heart of Christmas. It does bring people together. It does bring people back together during the holidays, even though they are quite busy. And it is a very emotional, very heartfelt film as well. And I think that's important. So a lot, when people think about Christmas and saying whether this is technically a Christmas movie, what is Christmas really about? Or what does Christmas really mean to you? And it's about being together with the people that you love and reflecting on the year that you've had, reflecting on remembering years past, but then also looking forward to the future, looking forward to the new year and greener horizons, beautiful horizons, greener pastures and things like that. And it's a really important time of year for those things. There's the past, the present and the future. But it's also about being together with those, sharing those memories, creating memories with those people that you love, family, friends, all sorts of different things. And I think Home Alone has this in droves, but it also has really good comedy as well. And I think that's something that's really wonderful. And another thing that I want to mention before I click off on this video, I love the movie within a movie, Angels with Filthy Souls. I really do. I think it's a really fabulous movie. I love both that and the sequel version of it. And I really do just love that film. I'm one of those people who can quote the dialogue exactly. I've seen this film so many times. I find myself quoting bits of it every so often. Like, he's upstairs taking a bath. He'll call you when he gets out. Here, I want to give you some snakes. I want to give you to the count of 10 to get you ugly, yellow, no good keister off my property before I pop your guts full of lead. And 1, 2, 10. Keep the change, you filthy animal. And things like that. So, it's very funny, but I also like the line, I could smell you getting off the elevator. That's from the second one, but I really love it. And I love, this is another one from the second one though, but I still love it. I love it when the character's begging and he's like going, maybe I'm off my hinges, but I believe you. I love 1920s Brooklyn speak. I really do. Like, they say some really funny things. Like, It almost feels like that line in Eyes Wide Shut where she goes, "Oh yeah, half of Fifth Avenue went in my eye," kind of thing. It's just those funny turns of phrases that I just really love. But yeah, I love this film to death. I think it's really wonderful. It's really funny. I never get tired of watching it. I've seen the first one and the second film more times than I can count. It's a wonderful Christmas movie. So if you want to see one film this Christmas that has to be your tradition, please make it Home Alone. It's funny. It's got something for the whole family. It's got something for the adults to... It's one of the perfect children's films as well, because I feel like it has something for children to enjoy, like the fantasy of being home alone, but it also has something for adults as well. Like if you watch it as an adult who maybe have watched it a long time ago as a child, there's stuff to appreciate when you're an adult as well. Like there's little things like with the Marley storyline or with other things. There's lots of different things here that really does feel like it applies to everybody. Not only can you enjoy the comedy and the slapstick, but you can also enjoy, lots of other things. It's a perfect Christmas movie for that. Even if it wasn't set during Christmas time, they would have found a way to put it on during Christmas. Like, think about films like The Princess Bride, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or Never-Ending Story. Like, these are films, or The Wizard of Oz. Like, The Wizard of Oz is a film that it doesn't have anything to do with Christmas, but it has a lot of things that would be almost perfect for the holiday of Christmas. So it really is quite interesting. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this film down in the comments, and if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe for more. I hope you're having a very good day. Take care, bye for now.